Hello and welcome to my show today. Today I have my clipboard. And I need that because I have lots of figures on this clipboard. Really. Okay, now we did our first trip up to Scotland by myself to open the caravan, and we stopped off at a number of places to charge up, and we did a number of miles during that whole time that I was for. Now, let us just look at the miles we did and how much electricity we put into the car and how it differs between what the car says I've done, how many miles to a unit of electricity, and how many units of electricity were put in, and how that relates to the miles I've done, because they're not equal. Really, they're not. So, let's look at this. Let us just say, for my whole trip, from leaving home to getting back home for that Scotland trip, I did 838 miles in the 10 days that I was away for. Now, with that, we have the car, which we've showed you in many of the videos if you've watched them, always getting like 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, increasing. I had a 5.8 and I think I had a 6 on one day. But as a whole, we came down to a little different. So let us look at the amount of electricity. Now, I've had to, because some displays didn't display, I had to use my phone and the apps on it to go onto the websites of the apps and see how much actually got put in the car with that. So let us start that. We left Newcastle and our first stop was the Chilterns, which is in Dumfries, and we put in 16.272. I will call them units. You can call them kilowatts or kilowatt hours. The amount of power I put in, I'll call them units, okay? Because it's less words and they're shorter. Okay, from there we left the Chilterns and we went to Kilmarnock, and we filled the car up to the 94%. By doing so, we put in 15.758 units. Now, that means when I got to the caravan, I had good range still left, so I didn't have to rush to put power in later on. So, let us continue. We did our trip to Dean Castle. At Dean Castle, I plugged in on the 7, that's there, and I put 13.729 units in. On another day, we went to Port Glasgow, and don't forget we did a look around all the chargers that were there. We did the drive, and that video is also up. When we're at Port Glasgow, I put 11.935 units in. Then we came back and we went on to the Saltcoats charger. That's when I ran into the man who couldn't work out why he couldn't charge, and you didn't realise you needed a card to do it. But at the Saltcoats I put in 13.76. We did our day trip, which took us up and around and over that bumpy road and that lovely road between Fastlane and that day. On that day we put the car on the charge 3 times. Not because we had to, but because we got to places and there was a charger, so we just put it on. The Dunbarton one, as we said, that was a very, very slow charger. It only put in 3.757 units for the time I was there. And I was there, well, it was like an hour and a half, wasn't it? An hour and 40 minutes, something like that? Yeah. It's in the video. Then we went to Inverglass, which was the little car park with the mountains. after Talbot, you turn up and go up the coast a little bit. It's there. I put 5.7 at that one. Then we came back down to Balloch, and at the big sort of area where they've got the eagles and all of that type of amusements, that charger where we were parked next door to the Tesla and the i3, that was still there when I got back. I put in 9.936. Then back home once again, and on another day we of course went and did the Ayr trip, where, if you remember, we went to Ayr. We walked along the riverbank of Ayr from the car park, and I put 17.17 units in during the 3 hours I was there. Then I came back because I think on that day I wanted to have a big charge because I was hoping to do a bigger drive. So I put 4.78 at Saltcoats back on the slow charger again. Nearly all these are slow chargers. None of these are fast out of the way, except for the Chilterns and Kilmarnock on the day we arrived. All these are slow. None of them are fast. So, yes, because when I left Ayr, we were then headed up to our Perth, and we stopped off at the Stranton. It's where the IKEA was, and where we had the man who arrived with his ID3 totally empty, so he couldn't get anywhere else, and and he was sitting in the car for an hour. I don't know why, but he put the charger on and sat in the car for an hour. A complete utter idiot. Because there's shops nearby. You could have went and had a cup of tea or coffee in McDonald's, anything, you know. But no, he sat in. So 4.7 there. We did another charge for 9.88. Our charge when we got back home, we tried to get on the charge and it wasn't fast enough, so I had to move. So at home, when I was bringing the car back up to full, I put 2.774 at Hebburn, but it was only on the slow chart and I wasn't going to spend 3 hours. So I went further along the road and put it on a 50 kilowatt charger and put 13.98 in. Now, we had some other small little chargers, which was Pod Point at Tesco's. One of them was at Galashiels. One of them was when I arrived at Perth and I went onto the charger at Perth, and one at Alloa, which was also on the way to Perth. So we put in, for some reason, as we said, the Galashiels one turned itself off even though I had confirmed it. I don't know what happened, but it actually put 0.6 in. Then when I restarted it for 30 minutes, I put 3.1 in. The Perth one, when I arrived there, to fill it back up to 99%, it was 9.9 units. And Alloa, which was just to show me looking around thingy, and that was 4.4. So they're not big numbers, but each bit helped, because if I hadn't put the one in Alloa, I would have had to have put 14 kilowatts in at Tesco's Perth. So they did come together. In total, that sounds like a lot of numbers. So it's lots of little charges, but the whole trip between me leaving home with a full battery and me rehaving a full battery, it put in 162.131 units of electricity. Now, if you take that and the 838 miles that I did, that comes to 5.1 miles to a kilowatt. Now, none, as I said right at the beginning, all of my figures for when I started were all 5, 6s and upwards, you know. There wasn't any days when I did less than 5. So, we have a difference. Now, let's also look and see. We had 162.1 units put in the car, divided by the 838 miles we did. That comes to 193. That's how many how much power was used per each mile. So we were under 200, which that's why we have 5 miles. So our average, even though many trips were, this was an average of all of them. So many trips, there was somewhere it was very windy, there was somewhere hot and I'd have had the window open. Every road condition, up, down hills, everything. This irons out everything that was done during that time period. Even sitting with the car on and eating sandwiches or whatever I was doing. Any power the car used, that is the averaged it out back down to that figure. But we have that figure and we have more electricity being put into the car and a lower mile range for the simple reason is that this energy, the 162, was not the amount of power that the car battery ended up having, because it was how much the units gave, but not necessarily how much the battery took in, because you have wastage, you have a loss. Now, the loss here seems to be somewhere, it's a point number for starters. So for the whole lot, you could be looking at per mile maybe 300 watts maybe. But that does account for the miles when you're not moving, overnight, anything that you're doing. So it's a mixture of more than one thing that's having this effect, that you are putting more power in than what the car is saying that you are using. It's not that the car is wrong. The amount of power it's using is correct to its best ability, but the amount of power going into your car is not the amount of energy going into your car. If your car could tell you how much physically it's took versus how much the machine says it's given, then you would be able to easily see the difference between them. But the car doesn't, so you can't. So you may put 100 watts in and only have 90 watts in. So that loss due to physically charging the car because of the components and the electricity going. It's the same as electricity going through the wires to your house. There is losses due to the distance the electricity travels. You don't send 100 watts of electricity down a cable from a power station to somebody's house. By the time it gets to somebody's house, it's a lot less because of the time it's travelled and the resistance of the cables. So this is why we are not quite the same. But still, with all the driving that I did, I still got over 5 miles. And now, let's quickly look, because we are getting on with this. We're going to quickly look at the cost. Not just that, but we're going to look at the cost at a few price points, so therefore you can see how much it actually would have cost. Because I put 162.1 units in, just taking it down. My cost for that unit, for that trip, was nothing. Using the chargers that are free, it cost nothing. But that isn't realistic for every single person who might be watching this. So therefore, let's look at it at some prices. If we say that each unit price was 25 pence, the price it is in Aldi and GridServe, that 162 units would have been £40 and 53 pence. Okay, at 39 pence, which virtually encompasses quite a lot of charges that are 39 pence or less, like Instavolt, Genie Point, that type of stuff, that if they're 39 pence, that's £63 and 18 pence for that amount of electricity. So that amount of miles, which is actually 7.5 pence a mile, just in case you wanted. The other one was 4.8, just in case you wanted to know. So compare that to my LPG car that I used to have. Now, I know precisely that that car, on the last year that I used it, at the price that the fuel was then, not what it could probably is now, because I think it's gone up a bit, but at the price it was then, it was 9 pence a mile. So for the 800 odd miles that I did, that would be £75.43. If I add on the cost of road tax, it would then increase up to £92.18. So even at 25p, we are well under half of what we would have paid for my LPG car with. And technically speaking, my LPG car was half of what the proper price is for fuel for that car. So really it should be about 18p a mile. So if we looked at 18p a mile and we said we were putting 25p a unit in and costing just under 5p, that's a third of the cost. So with that, my clipboard is done. My whole trip cost nothing. Good. It is one that I was preparing the caravan because 2 days after I got back, and the reason why I haven't done this video sooner was that I was taking my daughter back up to Scotland for her school holiday, and we've done another amount of driving during the time up, so I may do a distance one for that, but we didn't do much on the recording of the drives and that because I just put up a lot of driving ones, so I didn't think you would want to see that, but they'll come back changing formats and distances and stuff like that, and we'll try to do some better calculations on each distance and how much fuel we are using. So this is quite long, it's quite complicated, it's got lots of figures, but with that, please like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.